In the summer of 1947, a battered flatbed truck pulled up to an overgrown field on Cocklebur Road in the small town of Quicksand, North Carolina, and unloaded a wooden frame that would soon become a kitchen, living room, and bedroom. To ease the housing shortage in the U.S. following World War II, some military bases converted barracks and Quonset huts into temporary prefab houses. Mr. D. Roy Woodrow Bradshaw, also known as D.W., bought one. Once the carpenters added beaverboard walls and tar paper to the frame, the house on Cocklebur Road was then covered with a faux red brick asphalt siding that couldn't fool anybody. As there was no foundation, the house was propped up off the ground on cinder blocks. The post-war prefab did not include a bathroom, so D.W. and his brother-in-law built one with a small sink and toilet and added it to the back of the house. Rosebud, D.W. and Lovinya, Bradshaw's oldest child, observed that the bathroom hung off the back of the house like a turd dangling from a chicken's butt. No one disagreed. Of course, she never said that to D.W. They hardly ever spoke to each other. In fact, D.W. hardly ever spoke to any of his 4 children or his wife. When he did communicate, he shouted. He was a sheet metal worker and worked around loud machinery. Lovinya claimed he was almost deaf because of the noise at work, but everyone knew noisy machinery didn't account for D.W.'s loud, angry fits and foul curses or the abusive treatment of his wife and children. Alcohol didn't help, of course. D.W. began drinking at an early age and became an alcoholic. His father was an abusive alcoholic, as was his grandfather, his great-grandfather, ad infinitum. D.W.'s wife and children were horrified at their new home, but no one dared say it. Lovinya's mother, everyone called her Othermama, was equally horrified. She had no qualms about telling her son-in-law exactly what she thought, but even she was stunned into silence at the sight of the structure propped up in the middle of an overgrown field that looked like a jungle. Next door to the Bradshaws, on a freshly mowed lawn, a huge fir tree guarded a house made of real red bricks that no wolf could ever blow down. Hanging crisscrossed at a shiny picture window were freshly starched white organdy curtains. The house belonged to the Grady family. Like something out of a storybook, a weeping willow tree overlooked a small pond, edged by a row of white rocks at the side of the Grady house. Lily pads floated peacefully on the water while Mrs. Grady's prized goldfish darted among them. The Grady's yard was surrounded by every post-war American housewife's desire, a white picket fence. While the Grady family couldn't have been happy about the architecture that appeared next door, they were kind to the Bradshaws and never complained about them within earshot. But the Bradshaw children complained. Rosebud, a stunningly beautiful 15-year-old with long wavy brown hair, slumped on the couch in the living room, leafing through the latest photoplay, a popular magazine featuring the glamorous lives of movie stars. She wore a red and black flannel shirt and blue jeans. In one hand, she held what her brother Jason teasingly called her snot rag. Othermama would rip up an old bed sheet to make Rosebud handkerchiefs because Rosebud suffered miserably from hay fever and had been sneezing constantly all day. We live in a shithole, Rosebud sniffled, looking up at her mother with red, watery hazel eyes. I couldn't invite friends here to visit even if I had any. Lovinya, a slender, faded beauty in a cheap blue-flowered dress, stood nearby ironing her son Jason's shirt. She set the iron down on the ironing board before she spoke. We're lucky to have a roof over our heads. It was Lavinya's standard response. The rooms were small and the walls so thin you could hear everything that went on in the house. If old Rotter didn't drink and gamble his salary away, Lovinya, you wouldn't be in this mess. The voice came from the kitchen. Othermama was preparing dinner. Old Rotter was Othermama's name for D.W. She and her son-in-law despised each other. Lovinya refereed their fights. Fortunately, D.W. worked construction jobs and was often out of town. He was a good worker, but not a good provider. Othermama read the Bible every night and had a biblical quote for every occasion. She had been raised in a strict religious home, and her family regularly attended church. Drinking, cursing, and card playing were considered sins. Her son-in-law, D.W., was guilty of all three. It was beyond her comprehension how her smart, talented, beautiful daughter could have married such an abomination. Othermama often compared D.W. to the devil. In fact, she suspected he was the devil himself, or at least a demon, and to prove it, she quoted Matthew 8, verse 32 from the King James Bible, describing how Jesus exorcised demons from two violent men. And he said unto them, Go, and when they were come out, they went into the herd of swine, and behold, the whole herd of swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea and perished in the waters. Othermama concluded that one of the demon pigs didn't perish in the sea. It escaped and ended up in Dewey Rose, Georgia. The demon then jumped out of the pig and bored itself into a human body via the Bradshaw lineage. Rosebud believed this phenomenon to be true and called it the Bradshaw Curse. Including Othermama, 7 people lived in the 3-room house on Cocklebur Road. Lovinya, D.W., and their 4 children ranging in age from 15 to age 4. Rosebud, Jason, Ben, and Nikki. In the bedroom, cots were lined up across from each other, reminiscent of an army field hospital or an insane asylum. Othermama considered it ungodly that children and parents shared the same sleeping arrangement and refused to be a part of it. She chose instead to sleep on the small, lumpy, threadbare couch in the living room. Although Othermama wasn't tall, her feet hung off the edge. Widowed at a youthful age, Othermama had been quite the catch and had some handsome, wealthy suitors, but turned them down. She chose instead to help Lovinya and her children, who were always in need. Born the 4th of 7 children, Othermama learned early how to defend herself. She had strong arms, and growing up, she wrestled her older brothers to the ground. As there was no shower or bathtub in the Bradshaw's bathroom, baths were taken in a large tin tub, placed on newspapers, spread out on the floor of the living room. Othermama boiled big pots of water on the stove and carried them to the living room to fill the tub. Only months after moving his family into the house on Cocklebur Road, D.W. landed a coveted construction job on the island of Okinawa. He would be away for a year. No one was upset about his leaving except Lovinya, because he never gave her enough money to run a house and take care of the family when he was home. What would happen now with him being so far away? Would he send money like he promised? He didn't. Although he was making a handsome salary, the amount he sent to Lovinya was always late and never enough. In desperation, Lovinya got a job as a typist at a distribution company in the city. A graduate of King's Business College, she took shorthand and typed 85 words a minute without making a mistake. Because she'd never learned to drive and didn't own a car, she took the bus back and forth to work every day. The only problem was her youngest child, Nicolette Elizabeth Bradshaw, aged 4. When little Nikki discovered her mother was going to be away every day, she became hysterical. She cried and screamed and bit her wrist in several places, nearly drawing blood. The only way Lovinya could calm her down was to promise to bring her a surprise from town every day so that Nikki would know her mother was thinking about her. It could be anything, from a balloon to a pack of chewing gum, but Lovinya had to bring her something. There were no children Nikki's age in the neighborhood for her to play with, and it was too dangerous to let her play alone in the yard because several copperhead snakes had been seen there. To keep her occupied, Othermama would fill a bowl with soapy water, place it in the kitchen sink, and give Nikki an empty wooden spool from her sewing box. Nikki stood on a chair at the kitchen sink, dipped the spool into the soapy water, then blew bubbles through it. She loved blowing or trying to blow bubbles, but for Nikki, the best part of standing at the sink was looking out through the kitchen window, watching for her mother to return from work. Every day at 5:30 p.m., Othermama would place the chair at the kitchen sink for Nikki to climb up and wait for Lovinya. At the sight of her walking up the road, Nikki would squeal and run to the door. One afternoon, after a particularly busy day at work, Lovinya didn't have time to buy anything for Nikki and told her so. Nikki thought her mother was joking. Lovinya sat at the kitchen table smoking a cigarette. Othermama stood at the kitchen stove frying chicken. "Leave your mama alone," Othermama said. "She's worn out. Poor soul has to get up at 6:30 every morning to catch a bus to go to work because your trashy daddy dumped his family in this snake pit and..." "Honey," Lovinya said, gently stroking Nikki's blonde hair, "I told you, Mama didn't have time to get anything. I worked late and I was afraid I'd miss the bus." "Nikki, go wash your hands and tell Ben to wash his," Othermama said. "Dinner will be ready soon." Ben, 5 years older than Nikki, sprawled across the lumpy couch, listening to his favorite program, Tom Mick's Ralston Street Shooters. "Wash your hands," Nikki said. Ben ignored her, and she continued to the bedroom. Her mother would never forget to bring her something, and Nicky searched for Lovinya's pocketbook to prove it. Lovinya kept her pocketbook under her cot, and inside, Nicky found an open packet of chocolate candy. The chocolate bars weren't as sweet as a Hershey bar, but she ate them anyway. It didn't bother her that the candy was already open. Lovinya loved chocolate too. Eager to show her mother she'd found the surprise, she went back to the kitchen and tapped Lovinya on the shoulder. "Nicky," Lovinya asked, "did you wash your hands? What's that brown stuff around your mouth?" "I found it." "Found what?" "The candy." "I told you, Nicky, I didn't have..." What candy are you talking about?" "In your pocketbook, Mama, the little chocolate bars." Oh, sweet Lord," Lovinya gasped. You ate? Oh, you ate my X-Lax? Oh, it's not candy. It's a laxative. How much did you eat?" "I love it." "Why did you go into my pocketbook? You know better." "She'll need to get her stomach pumped," Othermama said. Lovinya ran to the bedroom to find the empty package of X-Lax near her pocketbook and began to cry. Because a facial stroke left Lovinya unable to shed tears, she could only whimper like a puppy. Oh. Whimpering, Lovinya called the nearest hospital and was told she should have the child's stomach pumped. But Lovinya didn't have the money to pay for an ambulance or a taxi to take Nicky to the hospital, or the money to pay for the procedure. They had to write it out at home. For Nicky and Lovinya, the night was a waking nightmare. No one else in the bedroom got much sleep either. Needless to say, Nicky would never feel the same way about chocolate or daisies. One afternoon, Missy, one of the Grady's 5 daughters, who was 7 years older than Nicky, asked Othermama if she could take Nicky for a walk. Nicky begged to go, and knowing how the child yearned for playmates, Othermama let her go. Missy led Nicky into the field behind the Bradshaw's house. Weeds and briars scratched Nicky's bare legs, but she was so excited to have a friend, she hardly noticed. They stopped to pick daisies. Missy told Nicky to lie down on the ground beside her to play a game. Nicky hesitated, and she was afraid of snakes. Missy took Nicky's hand and gently pulled Nicky down beside her. "Lie back," Missy told her. "Look up at the sky, those fluffy clouds." Nicky didn't want to lie down or look up at the sky, but she obeyed. Nicky liked to please others. Missy said the game was to find animals in the clouds. "See that big old dog?" Missy asked. As Nicky searched the clouds, she felt something brush against her bare leg. She gasped and struggled to sit up. Missy laughed. She had pulled Nicky's dress up to her waist. She told Nicky to lie back down and gently pushed her. Nicky became uneasy. Then Missy sat up and pulled Nicky's panties down around her ankles. "No, don't," Nicky said. She didn't understand why Missy did that. Nicky knew Mama and Othermama wouldn't like for her to be lying down in a field, and despite her young age, Nicky knew Missy shouldn't have pulled her panties down. Before Nicky could get up, Missy leaned down over her and kissed Nicky's vagina. The child didn't like it, didn't understand. Nicky wanted to go home, but was afraid to say it. "Let's do this," Missy said. She plucked a daisy and attempted to poke the stem into Nicky's vagina. "Hurts," Nicky said. "Stop." As she was on the verge of tears, Missy took Nicky home. That evening, when Lovinya sponge-bathed Nicky, she noticed the scratches on her legs and asked how Nicky got them. As Lovinya painted the scratches with mercurochrome, she nearly dropped the bottle when Nicky told her what happened. Lovinya began to whimper and questioned why Nicky went into the field. It became clear that Lovinya blamed Nicky for what occurred and never questioned Othermama about allowing Nicky to go. Lovinya never confronted Missy or Mrs. Grady, and the incident was never mentioned again. And of course, daisies never tell. On Christmas Day in 1948, parts of North Carolina experienced a 14-inch snowfall, and the Bradshaw's water pipes froze, leaving them no water to drink or cook with. Jason and Ben lugged buckets of water from the Grady's house next door so Othermama could make Christmas dinner. Ben was small for his age, but always tried his best to keep up with his big brother Jason. The water pipes were located under the house, and 12-year-old Jason had no idea how to fix them. But he had always been the man of the house, and he had to try. At Mr. Grady's suggestion, he warmed bath towels in the oven, crawled under the house, and wrapped them around the water pipes. It worked. The Bradshaws owned 2 small space heaters, and at times they had to wear their coats in the house to keep from freezing. In desperation, Lovinya managed to put a small down payment on a large oil heater that took up most of their tiny living room. It was the first time they had been warm that winter. It was then that Lovinya made up her mind that her family would not spend another miserable year in this cardboard-walled imitation house that was nothing but a tar paper shack. She didn't have a plan, but she knew that she had to do something. No one remembers exactly where the young man came from or how he heard that the Bradshaw home was for sale. Lovinya believed he was an angel sent from God just out of military service. He and his wife wanted to start a family. Tommy Arnold made Lovinya an offer, and she accepted. He was all smiles, as was Lovinya when he signed the deed for the tar paper shack. After he left, Othermama said, "Well, there's a sucker born every minute." In May of 1949, Lovinya bought and moved her family into a white frame house in the heart of Quicksand. The house had a kitchen, living room, 2 bedrooms, a front porch, a back porch, and a bathroom. It wasn't Lovinya's dream home. It still wasn't big enough, but it had a brick foundation, a floor furnace, and most importantly, a bathtub. Lovinya had escaped the dire circumstances D.W. left them in and accomplished the impossible. Had the Bradshaw Curse been broken? Companies began sponsoring contests in the 1950s to sell products and get advertising ideas. Lovinya was a dreamer and extremely creative. She soon discovered that she had a gift for writing jingles and naming things. She began entering contests. A car, a washing machine, a dishwasher, a water heater, a radio record player console, silver salt shakers, rocket shoes. These were a few of the prizes she won. Her list of winnings was impressive. She won something in every contest she entered. Unfortunately, she had to sell what she won to keep the family afloat. DW was drinking more and giving her less and less money for household expenses. It was always her goal to hit first prize often being a dream home. She knew in her heart that even if she won, it wouldn't change her husband's destructive behavior. Her marriage was a nightmare for her and the children. But winning a home would help her get on her feet, hold her own, maybe even divorce DW. The first prize in the Paw Paw Puppy Pate dog food contest was a dream home plus $25,000 in cash. To win, contestants had to name 2 beagle puppies, a boy and a girl. The clickety-clack of Lovinya's typewriter could be heard late into the night as she coined clever names for the pups, each name better than the one before, or so she imagined. Proof of purchase, a label from the can of Paw Paw Puppy Pate, had to be included with each entry. The dog food cans were stored on the back porch. Lovinya became convinced she would hit the jackpot this time. Because Paw Paw's pate was fortified with liver, she named the pups Fortifido and Liveronica. But she was sure her best entry, the one to win, would be Bark Antony and Triacatra. How could the judges resist? At the Quicksand post office, Lovinya dropped her stack of contest entries into the mail slot and began her prayerful wait for the winners to be announced, for the Bradshaw Curse to be broken.